On a cold and silent night, Evan drove his small human supply truck through the empty mining road. The sky above him was dark and heavy, and only the weak yellow lights of his truck moved across the lonely ground. He had taken this road many times, but tonight something felt different. Something felt wrong. As he turned around a sharp corner, his eyes caught something lying near the trash dumps on the right side of the road. At first he thought it was a broken machine, maybe an old robot someone threw away. But the shape looked too soft, too small, too still. A strange feeling hit his chest, and he pressed the brake slowly. Dust rising behind his truck, Evan stepped out. The cold air biting his skin, he walked closer. And with every step his heartbeat grew faster. When he reached the object, he froze completely. It was not a robot. Not a machine, not trash at all. It was a young alien girl. She was lying on her side. Her arms weak, her clothes torn, and her small body shaking as if she could not handle the cold. Her legs looked stiff, almost lifeless. Her face had bruises, and a thin line of dried blood was near her mouth. She looked so fragile that even the wind seemed too strong for her. Someone had thrown her here like garbage. Evan bent down slowly and whispered, "Hey, can you hear me?" For a moment she did not move. Then her eyes opened a little, soft and full of pain. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked into silence. She looked terrified, as if she expected him to hurt her too. Evan felt anger rise inside him. No one deserved to be abandoned like this. Not even a stranger, not even an alien child. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." He reached out his hands gently. And something unexpected happened. The girl weakly grabbed his jacket with trembling fingers. Her touch was cold and scared, as if she was begging for safety without words. Evan carefully lifted her, shocked at how light she was. She felt like she had not eaten in days. Just as he turned back to his truck, a sudden bright blue light flashed from far behind him. Evan looked over his shoulder, his breath caught in his throat. Several alien patrol lights were moving quickly along the road. They were searching for something. And Evan understood immediately. They were searching for her. The girl's voice shook as she whispered, "Please, don't send me back. They will finish me." Her words were soft but filled with pure fear. Evan tightened his hold. Everything inside him told him to leave immediately. He ran toward the truck, holding her close so she wouldn't fall. He gently placed her in the passenger seat and started the engine. Before he could drive, he heard voices in the distance. Harsh, angry voices. The patrol guards were shouting orders. Evan ducked and turned off his headlights. He could see their silhouettes moving between the trash piles. They were looking for something defective, something useless, and their tone was filled with cruelty. Evan's jaw clenched. These men had thrown a child away like broken trash. And now they wanted to make sure she never came back alive. He slowly moved his truck to the side, hiding behind old mining containers until the guards passed by. The alien girl was breathing fast, her body shaking harder. Evan touched her shoulder gently. "You're safe with me," he whispered. When the searchlights finally moved away, Evan started his engine again and drove fast into the night. The girl whispered her name, Lyra. Her voice trembled like she was afraid even of her own name. Evan nodded softly. "I'm Evan, and I'm taking you somewhere safe." As they drove deeper into the dark road, Evan knew one thing clearly. His life had changed forever in that moment. He had picked up someone the world had thrown away. Someone hunted, someone abandoned, someone who had no one else. And now the hunters would come for both of them. But Evan did not look back. He only drove faster, holding the wheel with strong hands and a stronger heart. Because tonight, he was the only person who cared enough to save her. And he was not going to let her go. Evan drove deeper into the long dark road, the truck shaking on the rough surface. The cold wind outside hit the windows like small stones. But inside the truck, the air was quiet and tense. Lyra sat in the seat beside him, her small body wrapped in an old blanket he kept for emergencies. Her breathing was slow and weak, and her eyes opened only sometimes, as if she was fighting sleep and fear both at the same time. Evan kept looking at her from the corner of his eye. He had helped many strangers before, but he had never seen someone in this condition. She looked like she had not eaten in days. Her skin looked pale, and her legs did not move at all. He wanted to ask her many questions, but she looked too fragile to speak. So he simply whispered, "Just stay awake, okay? We'll reach a safe place soon." Lyra tried to nod, but her head fell back softly. Evan's heart tightened. Whoever had hurt her had done it without mercy. He wondered what kind of people could throw away a child, especially a paralyzed one. The thought made his hands shake on the steering wheel. He breathed slowly and forced himself to stay calm. Panic would not help her now. Behind them, far away, blue lights flashed again in the sky. The patrol was still searching. Evan pressed the accelerator harder. The engine roared and the truck jumped forward. Lyra opened her eyes again, fear sparkling in them. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They want me gone. Forever." Evan looked at her gently. "They won't touch you again, not while I'm here," he said. His voice was firm, stronger than he felt inside. But he meant every word. Lyra watched him with confusion, as if she did not understand why a human would help her. Evan understood that look too well. She had lived around people who treated weakness like dirt. So kindness felt strange to her after an hour of driving. Evan reached the small forest path that led to his hidden cabin. He turned off the main road and drove between tall trees that blocked the sky above. The forest was quiet, only the sound of the engine echoing softly between the branches. Evan slowed down, not wanting to hurt Lyra with the bumps. But she suddenly grabbed his sleeve. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Her voice shaking, Evan smiled softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Lyra, those simple words made her tighten her grip a little more, as if she finally believed he would not throw her away like others did. Finally, the small wooden cabin came into view. Dark and lonely in the middle of the woods, Evan parked the truck carefully and turned off the engine. He stepped out quickly and ran around to her side. Lyra tried to move, but her legs did not respond. Evan lifted her in his arms again. Her head resting weakly on his shoulder, she felt even lighter now, as if she might disappear if he let go. Inside the cabin, Evan placed her gently on a couch near the fireplace. He lit the fire fast, the warm orange light filling the room. Lyra watched him carefully, her eyes confused. "Why? Are you helping me?" She whispered slowly. "Humans. They don't usually help us." Evan sat on the floor near her. "Because no child deserves what happened to you," he said. "And because you looked scared and alone. I couldn't leave you behind." Lyra blinked, as if those words were too hard to believe. "My people. They throw away anyone who becomes weak," she said softly. "I cannot walk. So they said I have no worth." Her voice cracked. "They were going to end me." Evan clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. "You are not worthless," he said. "You're alive. And that means you deserve a chance, for the first time." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but something softer. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Evan gave her warm water and a small piece of soft bread. She struggled to hold it, so he helped her take small bites. Her hands were cold and shaking, but she tried her best. Suddenly, a noise echoed from outside. Evan froze. Lyra flinched and grabbed his arm. "They found us," she whispered in terror. Evan stood up slowly, moved to the window, and saw something that made his heart drop. Blue patrol lights were shining between the trees, moving closer and closer to the cabin. Evan turned back to Lyra with steady eyes. "I promise to protect you," he said quietly. "And I will." He grabbed his old rifle, checked the door, and prepared for what was coming next. because tonight was no longer just about saving her. It was about fighting everyone who believed she was trash. And Evan wasn't going to let them take her again. Evan stood completely still as the blue patrol lights moved slowly between the trees. The forest that always felt peaceful now looked like a trap. Branches shaking under the heavy boots of the alien guards. Lyra lay on the couch, her hands gripping the blanket tight. Her eyes wide with fear. Evan's heart ached when he saw how her breath quickened every time she heard footsteps outside. He moved closer to her and whispered, "Lyra, listen to me. I'm going to keep you safe, but I need you to stay quiet." "Okay," she nodded quickly, tears already filling her eyes. "They will take me. They will finish me this time," she whispered, her voice thin like a dying flame. Evan knelt beside her and held her hand softly. "Not while I'm here," he said. "I won't let them touch you, for the first time." Lyra did not look confused by his kindness. This time she believed him, even if a small part of her still trembled with fear. Suddenly a loud voice echoed through the forest. "Search the place, she is close." Another voice shouted, "She can't walk, she won't get far. Find her and end this." Lyra squeezed Evan's hand, her whole body shaking. Evan felt a deep cold anger rise in his chest. He stood up and moved toward the back room where he kept supplies. He opened a hidden wooden panel on the floor, a small storage space he used for emergencies. "Lyra," he whispered, "I need you to trust me and stay in here for a short time." Lyra's voice broke. You're not leaving me, right?" Evan shook his head immediately. "Never," he said. "I just need to keep you hidden while I handle them." She tried to move, but her legs stayed still. So Evan lifted her gently and placed her inside the storage space. He laid a thick blanket under her so the wood wouldn't hurt her back. He touched her cheek softly. "I'll come back for you in a few minutes, I promise." Lyra held his hand for a moment. "Evan, they will hurt you too," she whispered. He smiled in a calm but determined way. "Let them try," he said, and then lowered the wooden panel, leaving a small opening so she could breathe easily. Evan took a deep breath and grabbed his rifle. Then he walked toward the front door, but instead of stepping outside, he quietly climbed onto the wooden beams above the entrance. He positioned himself so he could see through a small crack while staying hidden. His mind was clear, calm, and cold. He knew these guards were not coming to talk. They were coming to kill. The cabin door suddenly shook as someone kicked it hard from outside. "Open now," a guard shouted angrily. Another hit the door again, the sound echoing like thunder. Evan held his rifle tightly, but he didn't fire yet. He waited, thinking like a hunter, not a soldier. After a third kick, the cabin door cracked open. 3 alien guards stepped inside, their armor glowing under the firelight. Their eyes scanned the room quickly. "The human is here," one of them said. "Find the girl." Evan felt his anger spark again at the word girl. They did not say her name. They did not say child. They did not say injured. They said girl, like she was an object, something disposable. His jaw tightened. As the guards moved deeper inside, Evan lowered his rifle slowly and then dropped from the ceiling in complete silence. He landed behind the last guard and hit him hard with the wooden handle of his rifle. The guard fell instantly, unconscious. The other 2 turned, shouting, but Evan was faster. He grabbed the second guard's arm and twisted it sharply, knocking the weapon out of his hand. The guard stumbled backward, crashing into the table. The third one aimed his blaster, but Evan kicked it out of his grip and slammed him against the wall. One guard tried to reach for a knife, but Evan pinned his hand to the ground with his boot. Staring at him with cold eyes, "Where is your leader?" Evan demanded. The guard spat angrily. "You humans don't understand. She's defective, she's trash. She has no..." Before he could finish, Evan punched him hard enough to silence him. "She is a child," Evan growled, "and you threw her away." The cabin shook as more guards surrounded the outside. Evan knew he couldn't fight them all inside the cabin. He grabbed the unconscious guard's communicator and smashed it so they couldn't call for help. Then he ran back to the storage panel and opened it. Lyra looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. "You're okay," she whispered in disbelief. Evan lifted her again and held her close. "We're not safe yet," he said, "but we're leaving right now." Lyra nodded, her fingers gripping his shirt tightly. Evan looked toward the window and saw more blue lights approaching through the trees. He felt fear for the first time tonight, but it wasn't fear for himself. It was fear for the tiny alien girl in his arms. He held her closer, breathed out slowly, and whispered, "I promise to protect you, and I will." Then he stepped into the dark forest, carrying her through the shadows, because the world had thrown her away, but he had chosen her, and he wasn't going to let anyone take her again. Evan moved silently through the forest, holding Lyra close as he stepped into the tall shadows. The cold night air bit his skin, and every tree around him looked like a silent warning. Lyra's heartbeat was fast against his chest, her small hands gripping his jacket like she was afraid he might disappear. Evan whispered softly, "I've got you, just hold on." Behind them, loud voices grew stronger. The alien patrol guards were spreading through the woods, their blue lights shining between branches like angry stars. Dogs, or something like dogs, began snarling as they picked up Lyra's scent. Lyra buried her face in Evan's chest, her voice shaking. "They brought trackers. They never stop once they start." Evan tightened his hold on her. "Then we move faster," he said calmly, even though fear squeezed his chest. He had survived dangerous situations before, but never while carrying someone who couldn't run or fight. Every step had to be careful and quiet, and every second counted. He reached a fallen tree and crouched behind it, placing Lyra gently on a patch of soft moss. Her small face glowed faintly from the firelight, still shining from the cabin far behind them. Evan checked the area, then turned to her. "Lyra, listen, I need to distract them," he whispered. "If I stay still, they will catch us." Lyra shook her head quickly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "No, you'll get hurt." "Because of me." Evan brushed her hair softly. "I'm not leaving you," he said. "I'm just buying us time." For a second she stared at him like she was trying to memorize his face. Then she nodded slowly. "I trust you," she whispered, her voice almost too soft to hear. Evan placed her carefully under a thick bunch of branches, covering her with leaves to keep her hidden. Then he picked up a large stick and rubbed it against a stone until sparks caught dry grass. A tiny flame rose. He blew on it, and soon smoke drifted through the forest. The wind pushed it westward, exactly where he wanted it to go. Within minutes, the alien patrol guards reacted. "Smoke on the west side." One shouted. She might be crawling toward the river. "Move." Evan held his breath as half the patrol ran away from where Lyra was hidden, but the other half stayed, scanning slowly, their footsteps crunching closer with each passing second. Evan slipped behind a tree, his rifle tight in his hands. He didn't want to shoot unless he had no other choice. Fighting them directly would bring even more soldiers. He needed something smarter, quieter, more human. He spotted a patch of thin ice over a deep mud pit he remembered from hunting season. If someone stepped on it, they'd sink up to their waist. He grabbed a stone and threw it toward a far bush. The guards turned instantly. "Movement! She's there!" One shouted and ran. The ice cracked under their heavy armor, and two guards sank immediately. Shouting and struggling in the sticky mud, Evan darted away quietly, his breath shaking from the close call. When he returned to Lyra, she was shivering, not from cold, but from fear. "I heard them shouting," she whispered. "I thought they caught you." Evan lifted her again. "Not today," he said with a small smile. "We still have a long night." He carried her deeper into the forest, following a narrow path only he knew. The darkness grew heavier, and the sounds of the patrol faded little by little. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder, exhausted. "Why are you helping me so much?" she asked. "Most people would have left me behind." Evan breathed slowly before answering. "Because no one should suffer alone," he said, "and because you deserve a chance to live." Lyra's fingers curled weakly around his shirt, her voice trembling. No one has ever said that to me. They reached a small cave hidden behind thick roots. Evan carefully lowered Lyra onto a smooth rock and checked the entrance from outside. The patrol lights were distant now, but still searching, still hunting. He built a small fire inside the cave, enough to give warmth without letting smoke escape. The glow lit Lyra's face gently, revealing her exhaustion and pain. She looked at him with soft eyes. "Evan, I can't walk, I can't run, I can't help you," she whispered. "I'm only making things harder for you." Evan knelt in front of her and touched her cold hands. "You are not a burden," he said firmly. "You didn't choose what happened to you. But I chose to protect you." Her eyes filled again, but this time with emotion. "Not fear. You're different," she whispered. "Humans, you're people. They care in ways my people don't." Evan smiled sadly. "Sometimes we care too much," he said, "but tonight it's the only reason we're still alive." A distant howl echoed through the trees, not an animal, but a machine signal. The hunt was still active. They didn't have long. Evan added wood to the fire, looked at Lyra with steady eyes, and whispered, "Rest for a little, I'll keep watch." And as she slowly closed her eyes, trusting him completely for the first time, Evan lifted his rifle, turned toward the cave entrance, and prepared for the longest night of his life, because the world had abandoned her. But he had chosen to fight for her, and he wasn't stopping now. The night inside the cave slowly became quieter, but Evan did not relax. He sat near the entrance with his rifle across his knees, his eyes sharp and alert. The small fire behind him gave a warm glow, but he didn't dare let it burn too high. Outside, the patrol search had calmed down, but he knew it wasn't over. They were regrouping, spreading farther, planning something bigger. Behind him, Lyra slept lightly, her breathing soft and shaky. Every few minutes she moved a little, as if her dreams were full of pain. Evan watched her carefully, noticing how thin she looked even in the dim firelight. She had lived around people who treated weakness like trash, and it had carved deep fear inside her. After a while, Lyra opened her eyes slowly. She blinked in confusion until she saw Evan sitting there, guarding the entrance like a silent protector. She whispered, "You didn't sleep at all." Evan shook his head. "I'm fine," he said quietly. "You needed the rest more." She tried to sit up, but her legs did not move. Her face tightened with frustration and shame. "I hate this," she whispered. "I can't even stand. I can't even help myself." Evan turned to her and moved closer. "Don't say that," he said gently. "You've survived things most people never could." Lyra looked down, her voice trembling. "My people say those who cannot walk should not live." Evan clenched his jaw, anger flashing in his eyes. "Then your people are wrong," he said. "You deserve care, you deserve safety, you deserve a chance. And I'm giving you that." Lyra stared at him, confused yet deeply moved. "Why?" She whispered softly, "Why do you care so much?" Evan thought for a moment before answering. "Because you're a child who was thrown away," he said. "And no child deserves that fate." Her lips shook, but she did not cry. Instead, she reached out her hand slowly, touching his arm with trembling fingers. "When you held me in your truck, that was the first time someone touched me without hurting me," she whispered. Evan swallowed hard, feeling a weight in his chest. He placed his hand over hers gently. "No one is going to hurt you again," he promised. "Not while I'm alive." Lyra closed her eyes as if she wanted to remember that promise forever. Suddenly, a faint crack echoed outside the cave. Evan's eyes snapped open. He picked up his rifle immediately. Lyra's breath caught. "They're back," she whispered. Evan moved closer to the entrance and looked outside. At first he saw nothing, only dark trees and cold wind. But then he noticed a small floating drone drifting between branches. Scanning the ground with a blue light, Evan stepped back quickly. "They're using drones now," he said quietly. "They're sweeping the entire forest." Lyra shook her head, panic rising again. "They really want me dead." she whispered. They won't stop. Evan knelt beside her. Lyra, we need to move again, he said. This cave won't hide us for long. She grabbed his jacket desperately. I can't walk. You'll get tired carrying me. Evan gave a small smile. Then I'll just get stronger, he said softly. For a moment she stared at him, then something inside her changed. She looked at him with a trust so deep it almost hurt to see. He lifted her once more, her fragile body light in his arms, and moved carefully toward the back exit of the cave. There was a narrow crack behind the rocks, almost invisible, but Evan knew it well. He carried her through it into another part of the forest. Darker and colder but safer, the air smelled like wet earth and moss. And the trees grew thicker here, blocking most light. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder again, her voice soft. I don't want you to fight them alone, she whispered. Evan shook his head. You're not alone anymore, he said. We face this together, but Lyra shook her head. No. I mean something else, she whispered. If I slow you down. If I make it harder. You can leave me somewhere safe and go. Evan stopped walking immediately. His voice dropped to a quiet but firm tone. Never say that again. Lyra's eyes widened. Evan continued. Leaving you behind is not an option, he said. You're not trash, and you're not a burden, her voice cracked. But I can't do anything. You're alive, Evan said. And that is enough. For a moment they said nothing. Only the sound of rustling leaves broke the silence. Then Lyra whispered, Thank you. For seeing me as something more. Evan adjusted his grip and continued walking deeper into the forest. But then he froze, ahead of them. Through the trees, he saw something terrifying. A massive search ship hovering above the forest. Slowly lowering metal cables and bright spotlights, the hunters had called reinforcements. Lyra gasped softly. They brought a high-tier ship. They never do that unless the target is extremely important. Evan felt the weight of her words. Important? He whispered, Lyra, why are they after you so desperately? She hesitated, fear filling her eyes, then whispered weakly, Because I'm not just paralyzed. I'm something they created. And they don't want the truth to escape. Evan's heart dropped. Tonight was no longer a simple rescue, it was a war. And he was the only shield Lyra had left. Evan stood frozen for a moment, staring at the massive search ship hovering above the forest. The bright spotlights cut through the trees like sharp blades, lighting the ground with cold white circles. Lyra clung to him tightly, her small fingers shaking as she whispered, They brought the highest-level hunters. They won't stop now, Evan breathed slowly. Steadying his heartbeat, he scanned the area, looking for an escape path, but the ship covered almost the entire sky. Its engines rumbled like thunder, sending tremors into the ground. We need to stay under the trees, Evan said quietly. Their spotlights can't reach us here. He moved deeper into the thick shadow of the forest, carrying Lyra carefully. Her head rested weakly against his chest. Evan, she whispered, there's something you need to know. He glanced at her. Tell me. Her voice trembled. I'm not just a child they abandoned, she said. I'm part of a secret experiment. Evan slowed his steps. What kind of experiment? Lyra swallowed. They wanted to create a new kind of scout. Someone small, fast, and able to sense danger before others, she whispered. But something went wrong. The procedure damaged my spine. She touched her useless legs with trembling fingers. When I couldn't walk anymore. They said I was useless. Defective. Trash. Evan felt rage twist inside him. So they experimented on you, and when it failed, they tried to erase the evidence, he said softly. Lyra nodded, tears filling her eyes. If anyone learns the truth, their entire council will be punished. That's why they must end me. Evan held her closer. They won't touch you. Not while I'm alive. Before Lyra could answer, a mechanical howl echoed through the forest. Evan turned sharply and saw metal drones descending from the ship. They spread out, scanning with bright blue beams and releasing hound-like machines that sprinted across the forest floor. Lyra gripped his shirt in panic. "Evan, they're releasing the Seekers." Evan did not waste a second. He ran deeper into the forest, his boots hitting wet leaves, his breath sharp and quick. The mechanical hounds growled as they picked up Lyra's scent. Laser markers flickered over trees as the drone searched from above. It felt like the forest itself was shrinking. Closing in on them, Evan reached a narrow ravine and slid down, holding Lyra tight so she wouldn't get hurt. He hid under a fallen tree trunk, heavy roots covering them like natural armor. The sound of Seekers grew louder, their metal legs clattering like knives on stone. Lyra whispered, "Why are you not afraid?" Evan looked at her gently. "Because you're with me," he said. "And I refuse to let fear control me." A drone hovered directly above the ravine, its spotlight scanning dangerously close to their hiding place. Evan pressed Lyra closer to his chest, covering her with his jacket. The beam passed inches away from them. Humming loudly, Lyra held her breath, praying silently. Finally, the drone moved away, fooled for the moment. Evan lifted Lyra and moved again, walking along the ravine until the forest became thicker and darker. He knew the area well. There was an old abandoned human outpost nearby, hidden under vines and moss, a place no alien patrol would expect. When they reached the old metal structure, Evan pushed through the rusted doorway. The inside smelled like dust, oil, and old memories. "We can rest here," he whispered, gently placing Lyra on a wooden crate. She looked exhausted, her body trembling from fear and weakness, but her eyes searched his face. "Evan, I'm scared. I'm going to slow you down until they catch us." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands gently. "I told you before," he said softly. "You're not a burden." Her eyes softened. "You've done so much for me. And I've only made your life harder." Evan smiled sadly. "Saving you made my life heavier. But it also made it meaningful." Lyra blinked, touched deeply by his words. Before she could speak again, a loud crash shook the outpost. A Seeker hound slammed against the metal walls. Snarling, its glowing eyes scanned the cracks, searching for them. More shadows moved outside, more hounds, more drones. Evan grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and stepped in front of Lyra, his body blocking her completely. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Lyra reached toward him, voice breaking. "They're too many. You can't fight them alone." Evan's eyes hardened. "Then I won't fight alone," he said. "I'll use everything around us." The Seeker broke through the doorway, metal claws scraping the floor. Evan swung the pipe with all his strength, sparks flying as metal hit metal. The hound lunged, and Evan shoved a broken shelf into its path. The machine stumbled, giving Evan just enough time to slam the pipe into its head, disabling it. But outside, at least 6 more Seekers growled, preparing to enter. Lyra watched him with helpless fear. "Evan, they're coming. What do we do?" Evan stood tall, gripping the pipe like a warrior holding his last weapon. He looked back at her and whispered with steady confidence. "We survive," because he wasn't just saving her anymore. He was fighting an entire world that tried to destroy her. And he wasn't backing down. Evan stood in the old outpost, the metal pipe shaking slightly in his hands. Outside, the Seeker hounds snarled and scratched the walls like hungry monsters. Lyra sat behind him on the crate, her small body trembling, but her eyes fixed on him with a trust so deep it almost glowed in the dim light. Evan knew this was the last stand, and he knew he had to win. One Seeker burst through the second doorway, its glowing eyes scanning for heat. Evan swung the pipe hard, the impact ringing through the room like thunder. The hound fell, sparks shooting from its metal jaw. But 2 more leaped in right after it, their claws scraping the floor like knives. Evan grabbed an old metal panel and used it like a shield. The hounds crashed into it, pushing him back. His boots slid on the dusty floor. Lyra gasped and tried to reach for him. "Evan, please be careful," she whispered with a shaking voice. He pushed forward with a sudden burst of strength. Forcing the hounds back, one stumbled, and Evan kicked it over. Smashing its head with the pipe, the other lunged at him. And for a second, Evan thought it would bite his arm. But he twisted away at the last moment and slammed the pipe into its spine. The machine collapsed, its lights fading. The forest outside went silent for a moment. Then a deeper mechanical roar echoed through the night. Evan's breath froze as a massive silhouette stepped into sight through the broken doorway. It wasn't a normal seeker. It was a Titan-class hunter, tall as a tree. Its armor thick and glowing with red lines. Lyra's face went pale. "Evan, that one is made for killing strong soldiers," she whispered. "You can't fight that." Evan didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the machine. Calculating every angle, every weakness. Every second he could use, the Titan hunter stepped closer. Its heavy feet shaking the ground, it spoke in a cold voice. "Release the defective experiment." Lyra flinched at the word. Evan stepped in front of her again. "She is not an experiment," he said. "She is a child." The machine ignored him. "Stand down, human, or be eliminated." Evan raised the pipe like a sword, his voice quiet but full of fire. "You're welcome to try." The Titan charged forward with terrifying speed. Evan jumped aside, grabbing Lyra in his arms. The hunter's strike shattered the crate she had been sitting on. Wood and metal exploded across the room. Evan rolled behind a fallen beam. Covering Lyra with his body, the Titan scanned again. "Surrender," Evan whispered. "Never." He spotted an old fuel tank in the corner of the outpost. Rusted but still intact, his mind sparked with a desperate plan. "Lyra, listen to me," he whispered. "When I run, they will follow me. But I need you to cover your ears." Lyra's voice broke. "No. You'll die." Evan touched her cheek gently. "I promised I would protect you," he whispered. "This is the way." Before she could answer, he set her down carefully behind the beam and ran toward the far corner. Shouting loudly, the Titan turned instantly. Chasing with heavy, violent steps, Evan slid across the floor and smashed his pipe against the old fuel tank. The metal cracked, liquid spilling fast. The Titan raised its arm to strike him. Evan grabbed a broken spark battery from the ground. He threw it into the fuel. A blinding explosion shook the entire outpost. Fire burst upward like a giant wave. The Titan hunter was thrown back. Its armor melting under the flames. The shockwave threw Evan across the room. Slamming him into a wall, he fell to the floor, gasping for air. Pain shooting through his chest, Lyra cried out, "Evan!" She crawled with her arms toward him, her legs dragging uselessly, tears falling down her cheeks like rain. She reached him and pulled herself onto his chest. "Evan, please stay awake." "Please." Evan opened his eyes slowly, a weak smile forming. "I'm still here," he whispered. Lyra broke into sobs, holding his shirt tightly. Evan touched her hair softly. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Outside, backup lights began fading. The explosion had scared the patrol. And the Titan's destruction forced the hunters to retreat. The forest quieted slowly. The machines pulling away from the area. Minutes later, human rescue trucks arrived. Evan had triggered an old distress beacon during the fight. Human soldiers rushed in, shocked to find the burned hunter machine and the injured man protecting an alien child. They lifted Lyra carefully and carried Evan out on a stretcher. Lyra refused to let go of his hand. She whispered, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me." Evan smiled weakly. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "You're safe now, Lyra. And your life is just beginning." Days later, in a human medical center, Lyra sat in a treatment bed, her eyes bright with hope as doctors checked her spine. Evan stood beside her, healthier now. His arm wrapped gently around her small shoulder. The doctor smiled. "Her paralysis can be treated." Lyra looked up at Evan with tears of joy, whispering, "You saved me." "When everyone else threw me away," Evan squeezed her hand. "You were never trash," he said softly. "You were always worth saving." And as Lyra slowly moved her toes for the first time, a new life began for her, a life she never believed she deserved. A life given to her by a human who refused to let her die, because when the world abandoned her, he chose to lift her gently, and he never let go.